Thanks everybody for joining. As you jump in and get comfortable, we'd love to see in the chat just where everybody's tuning in from, what organization you're representing, maybe what your role is, and then anything that you feel like you want to share, questions you have coming into the day, any comments, anything you're excited for, anything you want to share today is great. Love to hear from you all because you're going to hear plenty from us here today. So give everybody a minute here. All right, great. Open up the chat here too. So my name's Gabe Molinsky. I am the sales manager at TeamGenius. Again, if you feel like you want to jump in and drop in the chat where you're tuning in from, we'd love to hear from you guys. We're located here in Minnesota. We have an office in Edina. I see some Minnesota people in the chat, so that's or not chat, but in the attendee list. So great to see some familiar names on here, as well as some new ones. SportMed Connect, our newest partner, is down in Texas. We were just talking about the weather and how they're a little bit luckier this time of year. Maybe summer they'd be a little bit jealous of what we have here, but definitely pros to each location. Really excited to introduce you guys to SportMed Connect. They've got an awesome slideshow prepared on the top 10 things pro athletes do, which will include information on how you can help your athletes stay healthy, perform at their best, and reach the next level, which a lot of athletes are doing. Everybody wants to stay healthy. I think also most of them want to perform at their best, and a lot of them do want to reach the next level. At the end of the call, we'll be doing a giveaway as well. That's going to be for a $500 worth of game day gear to someone who is attending live. And that person will also get a free sports medicine and performance evaluation with SportsMed Connect and the ultimate game day kit featuring a Yeti cooler, two Yeti Rambler bottles, and a $150 Dick's Sporting Goods gift card. I know I could have used that last week. I had my son's first ever soccer practice. So those cleats and all that stuff adds up. At the end of the call, we'll be doing that giveaway. So definitely tune in or stay tuned in if you can. And that will be, yeah, the winner will be selected at the end. We're going to launch a poll now that you can feel free to fill out now or throughout the webinar. So no rush on that, but obviously a lot of value throughout the call here today. So maybe jumping into that up front is best. And with that being said, I'll kind of give a quick intro to TeamGenius. So for those who don't know what TeamGenius is, we're the leading athlete evaluation software in North America. A couple of years ago, we were acquired by our now sister company, Human Powered Health. They provide athletes with advanced professional grade combine tests like force plates, VO2 max tests, sweat tests, and all the tests we are able to do at our labs are usually reserved for those pro and collegiate level athletes. But we're now opening that up to everyday people who want to run a faster marathon or athletes who are looking to check out if they're injury prone, want to see what they can work on, want to see how they stack up to athletes at the next level. And throughout the last couple of years, we've launched locations in Edina, Boston, and now Scottsdale, Arizona as well. Together with Human Powered Health and TeamGenius having the athlete evaluation software, there's a Minnesota person, love to see that. Uh, yeah, together we've been able to start hosting combines similar to the NFL or NHL combine to help athletes who are 14 and older avoid injuries and find out what they need to do to get to that next level. And our third branch of our company is called Human Go. It's an AI training app for endurance runners. So if you're an endurance runner or a cyclist or a triathlete, Ironman or striving Ironman participant, then that's a great app for you to check out, Human Go. That's enough about us. We've got a lot to cover with SportMed Connect. Kind of going back a little bit to when I was first introduced to SportMed Connect, when we were first discussing what they're doing and what we do, I heard the word evaluation echo in some of their messaging, which we say 100 times a day with our users and prospects and anybody we're talking to about TeamGenius. So it felt like a very natural partnership given we allow coaches to more easily evaluate athletes. And SportMed Connect saves athletes and coaches time and money if they do need that medical evaluation because they get hurt on the field. And they do a lot more than that. They're going to provide or kind of tell you more about here today. On that note, I'd love to introduce Sean and Clint. I think they've got a really valuable slide deck prepared that's going to be beneficial to anybody in the sports space today. We will plan to, I'll give you some housekeeping stuff after we get an intro from them. But Sean, you want to go ahead and then Clint can jump in afterwards?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Gabe. Great to be on the call, and thank you for joining on your lunch hour here for many of you. My name is Dr. Sean Garf. I'm a sports medicine physician and then specialize in taking care of the athlete, really of all ages. We consider every patient an athlete that we see. Just last patient of the morning saw a 7-year-old. We go all the way up to 99. So see everyone in between, but a lot of experience taking care of rec and club level athletes, high school, collegiate, and professionals. And so we'll get into more about what we do. And I don't want to make this valuable for all of you. We're going to talk a lot about what pro athletes do and how you can specifically apply these things that they're doing to your youth clubs and teams as well.
Great. Clint, you want to jump in now with an intro to yourself?
Yeah, excited to be here with you all. I'm Clint Mickle. I'm a board member and advisor to the business. Been working with Sean on SportMed for about a year and a half. Really excited to meet you all, and most importantly, I hope you guys find the content to be really engaging and helpful to you and what you guys are doing every single day.
Yeah, I think based on the slideshow that I saw, it's going to be really valuable, and I'm excited to hear it from you guys personally. Last couple housekeeping things on our end before we dive in. As always, on these webinars, we'll send out the recording and slide deck. If you have questions throughout, just send them in the chat, and then we'll get to those either throughout the call or at the end of the call. If it's more fitting for the end of the call, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you want to save your questions till then, feel free to do that. And as mentioned, the topic today is the top 10 things pro athletes do. On a personal note, I have a couple brothers who play hockey at a high level, and they've gone up through the ranks, high school, the juniors to college, and at the end, NHL. I've seen them pick up so many of these things that are in the slide deck, so I'm really I feel like I can relate to this on a personal note, and it really is valuable to try to pass along some of this messaging to your players. Not all of them are going to be receptive to it, but it's good to at least have the knowledge to give them and help them avoid injuries, recover, get that right mindset, all of that. So enough from me. Sean, you can take it away from now.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Let me share the screen and we'll get underway here. So, yeah, as Gabe mentioned, we're going to talk through top 10 things that pro athletes do and how you can keep your athletes healthy, perform at their best, and reach that next level. As Gabe mentioned, we've formed a great collaboration and partnership with TeamGenius, and we're grateful for what they've brought already. As a thank you to all those TeamGenius subscribers, we will offer a complimentary sports medicine performance consultation to TeamGenius customers. What that looks like is basically we show you how you stack up against other clubs your size and in your sport when it comes to how you're taking care of the athlete from a medical and performance standpoint. We won't get into teaching you about coaching or administration. That's your guys' expertise, but we'll talk more the medical side and performance side. So you'll have a poll at the end where you may have already seen that, but if that's of interest to you, we're happy to do that as a partnership with TeamGenius. So I wanted to start with this concept of really these three things on staying healthy, elevating your performance, and reaching that next level. Athletes are always trying to get that next level edge. They're trying to get one up on the next person, and it's amazing how much, maybe some of you have some experience with this, how much professional athletes spend their time and their day doing these things, right? We see, I had one Olympian that was in my office, and he was getting some painful treatment to an area that was lingering quite a long time. And he said, you know, all the fans, all you see is just the finish line. All you see is me crossing that line, wanting to, you know, hoping that we get silver or gold for our country. No one sees all this work and effort that we're putting forth to stay healthy and to be able to elevate our performance. So what I'm hopeful is, as we go through these top 10 things, that each one of you can take one or two things that you can apply and implement to your club or your team that you work with. On that note, as Gabe mentioned, we are giving away this game day kit, including a Dick's Sporting Goods gift card and then some Yeti swag. So in order to be eligible, and we're going to give this away, we'll have a randomizer give it away on the call at the end. In order to be eligible, we want you to have some participation in the chat. So if you participate in the chat, Clint is going to be monitoring this. Your name will go into the hat and the drawing randomizer to win this game day kit. So the first question I'll ask you is, if you had to answer this question yourself, if someone asked you this as a club owner, director, coach, parent, what would you say? What are things that professional athletes do to achieve these three things? Stay healthy, get better at what they do, and yeah, reaching that next level. So put it in the chat what your answer would be. You don't choose one or two things. And let's have a little bit of interaction here before we jump into it. So I'll see how we can monitor this. Good nutrition and sleep, always elevating their performance. Gabe wrote in the question there. Focus on nutrition, mental health. There's another eat good, nutrition. I wonder if our nutritionist is paying off some of you to put these things, but discipline schedule is great. Again, another nutrition, stay healthy, focus on recovery. This is all good stuff. We're going to address all these things. Mental health. You know, I find it really interesting that nobody said practice their sport more. Nobody said, you know, do more layups or jump shots in basketball or take more, you know, goal kicks or whatever, which is really interesting to me, that when we're thinking about, oh, there we go, Mary, you said practice, 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 which is very true. You got to do that. And I'm hoping that we can find one or two things again that can kind of supplement what they're doing with practice, practice, practice. So thank you for those. We will ask you again at the end, one or two things that you're going to do that you would like to implement into your team or your club. So in true top 10 fashion, SportsCenter top 10's got to be one of my most nostalgic things watching as a kid, thing I love the most. So I often refer to top 10s and I think fondly of SportsCenter moments. This is the highlight. We're going to go through each one of these individually. As Gabe mentioned, if you do have questions or comments, or you want to bring something up when we're on that topic, please shoot it in the chat. Gabe and the team should be monitoring that, and we can address those right away. If there are broader questions, we can certainly hit those at the end. If you have any just general questions for sports medicine physician, I'm happy to answer them. So anyway, I won't spend a lot of time saying each one of these, but let's just dive right in. So number one, prioritize strength training. This is extremely important to prevent injury, which I'm very cognizant of. I'm a physician, and a lot of what I see is injured athletes. And while, to be honest, that's how I get paid, seeing injured athletes, that's not what I want to see. I want to see healthy athletes performing at their best and getting back. So what do we do to implement a injury prevention program? And really, honestly, the biggest thing you can do to prevent injury is strength train and stabilize that joint. We had a very prominent school in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, nationally ranked in football and basketball, and they had 1 year 14 ACL tears. And some of these you can you just bank on happening because you're going to get hit the wrong way. But that was too many for me. So the next year we implemented a personalized training program for all of their athletes that were at risk for ACL tears. And we had an extreme reduction. The next year we only had 5. So again, you're going to have some freak accidents. It's the way it's going to be. You're going to have broken bones, but we see a lot of non-contact injuries, even at the highest levels of the NBA. If you're following the playoffs at all last year, very prominent athletes, all league athletes were getting hurt on non-contact injuries. So how are we preventing that? Strength training is the key. So find ways to implement this. And I would say be specific about your sport. Um, Strength training for hockey versus volleyball versus soccer is going to look differently. And so find ways to get sports specific coaching and training. If you have a program that you're like, oh, I don't really know what that looks like, or I'm just going to do what I was taught when I was a kid. The science is changing, right? And so I always remember running out to the football field when I was a kid and stretching. First thing we did, get in a group and start stretching. Well, the science doesn't support that anymore. So we don't stretch cold. We'll talk about this in a minute, but dynamic warm up is very, very important. One of the bullet points I would say on there is teach athleticism. So for the younger kids, if you're dealing with kids less than 10, teach them athleticism. So they're not going to be doing back squats and lunges and all these things, but teach them things that make them quicker on their feet, box jumps and cone drills and things like that. Regardless of the sport that you're in, athleticism is going to matter. So you'll see at the bottom of this slide, and I'll have this for everyone, how do we apply this to the youth organizations and to the young athletes? You're not going to have the resources to go hire. Some of you may, but most of you won't have resources to hire a full-time strength and conditioning coordinator or coach that can be there all the time and that's sports specific and that's always with your athletes. So one thing that you can do that's been very popular among some of the clubs we work with is create a calendar and build in strength and skills and conditioning into that calendar, something that looks like this. So this was a calendar that was put out by one of our clubs. And every day, this was an off-season training program for baseball. And so they had a mixture of, one day, if you look at the first, you'll see that's going to be more skill development in baseball, taking ground balls and hitting tees, hitting soft toss. Thursday is going to be not baseball at all. It's just teaching athleticism. This is for a younger group. And so they're doing burpees and air squats and push-ups and so forth. So they're getting them athletic and they're teaching them skill and hold them accountable. Have them come back with how they're doing on these and crossing off the days. What you'll notice here, and we'll talk about this more, is that there's a rest day each week. And there's still coaches, a lot of coaches in youth sports that say, if we're going to be a track program, we're going to run every day. That's how we get faster, is by running every day. Well, you got to run to be faster. You're right. But you got to also take care of your body. So I love the idea that there's a rest day in here. So number one, find a strength training program. This is something that's pretty well known, and you've got to just kind of work it to your organization and your team. Two, along these lines, we're going to commit to prehab and mobility. This is often overlooked. We got to maintain mobility. I've seen multiple non-contact injuries, especially in the knee realm and hip and ankle realm, that have been avoided because of mobility. So again, often overlooked, especially in youth sports, but find time to implement mobility, stretching, core strength, foam rolling, massage gun, manual work, whatever you can get in. And again, we don't warm up or stretch cold. We warm up with purpose. So that's going to be really, really important. I always tell kids, look for examples. Jerry Rice, in my opinion, best receiver ever to play the game. He took ballet while he was an NFL receiver. Kobe Bryant had recurring ankle injuries. He did tap dancing while he was a basketball star. So they've found other ways to create mobility, to create stabilization, and to create ways to prevent injury for them in their sport. So a youth application here is implement the warm up with purpose protocol. 5 or 10 minutes before every practice, spend the time. It's well worth it. Teach athleticism, get their bodies moving, get them warm first before you're starting in on a stretch program or starting right away. So dynamic warm up, please, then stretch. And then you can look at neuromuscular training. If you're a soccer club, FIFA put out a fantastic ACL prevention program. So find ways to implement these strategies into what you're doing on a daily basis. It's not all about how much you can bench. So our first slide, lots of strength and conditioning. You'll meet these sort of, I call them meathead coaches that are all just hitting the gym, see how much you can back squat and bench. We're beyond that. The science is way better than that. And so, yes, we want to build strength training, but we cannot forget mobility and prehab. All right. So for many of you, I think maybe our number one focus was nutrition on this. Let me just back up a second by saying I'm hitting top 10. I'm not going deep into every one of these could be their own hour-long lecture. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time. I'm just going to try to give you some resources and then you to say, hey, this is really resonating with me. I really want to focus more on our nutrition, hydration, and I'm going to point you to where you need to go. For this, the Sports Nutrition Playbook.com. Go right there. There's no place better. They work with professional and high-level collegiate athletes. They're licensed in all 50 states. They do virtual coaching for you as a club. They do virtual coaching for individuals as well. That can be covered by insurance, which is amazing. Most people don't know that nutrition consultation can be covered by insurance. So go visit their website, go reach out to them. They're a phenomenal group. I don't pretend to be the expert, but what we do at SportMed Connect is connect you with the experts in all of these fields. And I'll tell you what, working with D1 level colleges and professional athletes, they spend a lot of time focused on nutrition. I'll give you one quick story. High level athlete, 5-star football recruit, going into the semifinal 6A football game in Texas, which is about as big as you can get in any high school sport. He comes in, he's got 3 touchdowns in the first half, no big deal. Comes in at halftime, he's cramping, he's holding his leg, his ankle's hurting. I'm like, what are you doing? So we check him out. Hey, he feels good, but what'd you have to eat today before the game? He said, well, I had 2 donuts this morning. I said, well, what else did you eat? He said, that's it. I said, man, you've got a 7-figure NIL deal coming your way in about 3 months. And you tell me you had 2 donuts, that's it? He's like, yeah, well, let's get you electrolytes. Let's get you, some protein, some carbohydrates. Let's get your body functioning. So, fueling your body is an art, and there's a lot of science to it. And so we've got to be on the forefront of that. If you're a youth club director and you got 6 and 7-year-olds, yeah, that may look different. Educate your parents on what to bring for snacks. If you're a high-level travel club, make sure you're planning your meals appropriately. I will say one quick thing on hydration. The number one reason why I get called out to the field on a football game is cramping. The number one reason a player goes down and stops the clock in high school football is cramping. And maybe that's because I live in Texas and it's hot here. But the bottom line is they're asking for pickle juice and mustard packets and electrolytes and all these things, and they're asking for IVs. And I tell them you've already missed the boat, man. 24 hours before you hit game time or performance, that's when you have to be hydrating. If we're in a hot environment or we're exercising for more than an hour or we have excessive sweat, we got to add electrolytes to that. Otherwise, we'll go hypotonic, and we'll have a hypotonic solution. We'll lose a lot of those electrolytes. So we've got to add that back. So for your application, education on nutrition and hydration is key. So each season, I would recommend having some sort of education on this. Maybe it's hydration one year, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's pregame meals. Maybe it's going to the Sports Nutrition Playbook.com and finding one of their resources. Here's a great example of it. This is a list of great pre-workout or pre-game meals ideas that they can do. They have a lot of resources with regards to if you're on the go and you have to eat at a fast food restaurant or a sandwich shop, what can you do to fuel your athlete properly? And this is really key. I'm telling you, the pros and the collegiate players, they don't mess around. They eat a lot of food. D1 campus I worked on, they had these little food lockers for athletes. So about every every, other building on campus. They could go into one of the floors, they could type in a code, and it was basically a closet full of really, really good, high nutritious type foods and drinks. So I know they spend a lot of time and effort on that level, fueling their athlete properly. So find ways for you to do that, the same for yours. All right, number four, I think we did see some stuff about recovery and sleep. The sleep medicine world is growing like crazy in the medical community. There are now fellowships where doctors are learning specifically about sleep. Many of you probably have an Aura ring, or a Whoop band or an Apple Watch that's tracking your sleep. And then you think, well, what do I do with this information now, right? That's one of the things we're trying to work on as a medical community to help educate the general population on with those, with these trackers and with this data, like what do you do now, right? So pretty common, adults 6 to 8 hours of sleep, teenagers 8 to 10. uh, that's not groundbreaking. The thing that I've got to emphasize to all my athletes that come in and see me is get rid of your caffeine in the afternoon and later, and get rid of your screen time before bed. So I can't help a kid who's got a concussion that can't sleep when he's drinking a pre-workout at 4 p.m. before their lifting session. It just doesn't work, right? You can't expect your body to have restorative sleep. When they have their phones or their iPads or their screens in their bed, they have a TV in their room and they're 16 years old and they fall asleep to a movie, your brain cannot get the recovery and sleep that it needs. Um, a quick word on sleep. You'll see this Whoop band here. I was in a presentation by the founders of Whoop many years ago, and they had actually banned Whoop bands in the NBA because the Whoop score data was getting leaked out, and the people, the general population, were varying their bets too greatly based on the Whoop data. And there was clear evidence that if someone had a low Whoop score, their points per game were going to be well below their average. And so the NBA actually banned it. So you cannot wear it for any games. Um, Matthew Dellavedova is an Australian guy, and this is where that was started, Whoop, and so he was wearing them. LeBron wore them for a long time, but they're outlawed now in the NBA because of that. So there's something to be said about sleep and recovery if we know that it was varying their performance that much. I'll say a quick word on recovery. Yeah, there's so much out there now. Like, do we do ice baths? Do we do red light? Do we do tens? We get these big massage chairs in our gyms. What do we do, right? And I can't tell you there's hard and fast science behind any of them, really. Each of them have their own benefits. Each of them have their own uncertainties, to be honest. But find ways to access and provide recovery modalities for your athletes. And I think as a coach or a director, you can build in those rest days. I mentioned previously, and it really has been, I have had coaches tell our runners, for instance, you got to run every day. And it's really hard when you're seeing a kid that's top 10 in the state and they've got a stress fracture right through their tibia. And it's like, I can't help you now. You've already broken through that bone, right? You haven't focused enough on nutrition and recovery. And while you think you've been getting stronger and faster by running more, now you've created a stress fracture and now you can't even participate. So, um, the old adage of the best ability is availability has to hold true, and we have to protect our youth athletes, and that's kind of the business that we're in. Maria, to address your question, what modalities would you recommend for recovery? Again, this is hard. There's not one that's like you should definitely do this. But what I'll say is that find a way to build in what you can given your situation and your scenario, right? Some people have a gym where they have space to put in a cold plunge or to put in a portable sauna. Those are going to be a lot more expensive, right? Some people don't have that space, so they can just carry a kit or a bag that have the recovery pants, or a TENS unit, or a little portable red light unit, right? So I think I don't have a specific answer on which one is the best, but I think you got to find out for your situation what can work, and for your budget what can work. But the fact that you're thinking about it, and the fact that you're talking to your athletes about it, and that they're paying attention to it, and you're building in rest and recovery times and days into your program, you're already well above what the national average club or team is doing. So, so be thinking about that. Make that a priority for your club. All right, number 5. We did see a lot of these come through, and as far as some of the answers early on, but mental performance, this is key. There's been numbers as high as 90% of your performance success is mental. Now, I mean, again, for me, the difference between me and LeBron is not 10%. So even if I'm mentally strong, I still gotta have physical ability, right? So somewhere between 50 and 90%. I'm probably more in the 50%, but still a big chunk of how you perform is your mental capacity. So the question is, how much time do we spend? There's no way we spend 50% of that time of practice on mental training, nor should we, right? But we should devote some time. The professional athletes do, right? We work alongside Elliot Cox, who's a mental performance coach and sports psychologist. He's hired by the Tampa Bay Rays baseball organization to work all through their minor leagues and major leagues to help with mental performance. And baseball is one of those sports that, you saw Aaron Judge 2 years ago in the World Series, one of the greatest hitters in the game, and he was like, working on a no hit streak for the last 9 or 10 games. So mental performance is highly underrated in the youth sports industry, and we've got to find ways to build it in and prepare our athletes. So it's really, in my opinion, what separates that next level athlete. If they have the mental performance and aptitude to handle the stress of the game, of the tournament, when things are on the line, they're going to be what separates that next person. Kind of a phrase that I've used my entire life, because my dad always told us this, was confidence breeds confidence. As a coach, as a director, if your mojo is belittling and kind of teasing and making fun of, like one of my football coaches was, it's really hard to get that athlete to be super confident when the game's on the line. So you've got to breed confidence in your athlete. And the way, in my opinion, you do that is by showing them confidence. Ask yourself the question, what culture are you creating in your organization, and what do you want to create? We work with a lot of organizations that they're really more about the whole athlete and helping them develop as a human being. And that shows forth in their retention rates and who they're the kind of athletes that they're recruiting into their teams and their clubs. So think about your culture. One of the clubs that we work with has a motivational Monday session. So every Monday they send out to their group chats or their social media something that's motivational, something that's going to help their mental performance to all their athletes and parents. One of the things I'll say is I worked with the sports psychologist for Duke University, and they had a parent meeting every year with all the incoming freshmen. And it was for the parents. And it was like, listen, parents, you have been at every one of your kids' games, most likely. Your kid has been one of the best players in their respective area, right? They're recruited, they're here at Duke. So really, really respectable sports program. But now is the time to pass the buck, right? So you got to let your athletes find their motivation. You can't be screaming at them at the sideline, through the fence, wherever you are, telling them what to do. You've got to let them fly. And so that's what we want to build in earlier to these youth athletes. I would say the youth application here for everyone who's on the call, from a coach to a director, is find your why. Why are you doing this? None of you on the call are doing this for money, I guarantee you. If you're in youth sports for just the money, you're not on this call because you don't care, number one, and you're probably not really worried about these partnerships. So you have a why. Find your why and then help your athletes find theirs, because nothing will be more motivating to them and nothing will help their confidence than when they find their why they love the sport, why they want to keep working. You won't have to have these great motivational speeches. They'll come from within. So find your why as a coach and an organization and help your athletes find theirs. All right, so transitioning into that.
Sean,
Sorry.
real quick before we jump to that, yeah, we had a good question.
Yeah.
How would you express the importance of the why that drives all of your motives, really? How do you express that to the players?
That's a great question. And in the latter half of these 10, we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. But I think what's resonated the most with youth athletes these days is who they look up to and their examples, who their role models are. And so, as a coach, as a physician, and really all I am is a motivator, right? I sit in a room with someone, I evaluate what they're doing, and poor girl saw today, hyperextended her knee, likely tore her ACL. I've got to be a motivator, right? I mean, we're going to tell her in a couple of days after her MRI that she's got a torn ACL, and she's a freshman in high school, very, very solid career ahead of her, but I've got to turn into a motivator. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use examples of people that have come before her that have overcome the trial or that burden or that failure and say you can be every bit as good, right? And so I mean, again, I don't know the great answer there, but for me, it would be finding a role model, finding someone that they would look up to, that they would resonate with, and saying this is how you can um, this is how you can be motivated. And then it's why is hard for probably anyone less than I would say 14 or 15, right? You're going to ask a 9-year-old baseball player or hockey player, what's your why? They're like, I don't know, it's fun. This is awesome, right? Great. Work with that. Let them have that, right? Let it be fun. And when it's not fun, go back to what was fun for them, right? So fun is okay. That may be a motivator for them. As they're getting into the higher level ranks, now we have to say, what is your motivation? Is your motivation to get a scholarship to college? Is your motivation to be the best player in this area? What is your motivation and why? And help them develop that. Have discussions about it, right? You can talk openly about these things in team meetings. In one-on-one sessions with a parent and a youth and an athlete to talk through different things, use examples from past players. But as they think about these things, and again, as they get more mature into the high school ranks and beyond, that has to stick with them. And again, it really is what separates them. So that's a great question. I would say role models is key, which kind of leads us to this next point. I took this idea of listen to your body, which I say no joke, 12 to 14 times a day in my office from Kobe Bryant's book, Mamba Mentality. His quote in there is, I always listen to my body. That's the best advice I can give is listen to your body and warm up with purpose, which we already discussed. But listening to your body is really, really important. And as coaches and directors, we have to be aware of that. Okay, we've got to build resilience. We all know this generation forthcoming, we have got to build resilience. We don't want soft players in any sport, right? We got to build it. And so there's times and places for that. I'll never forget my first time throwing up after sprints during two-a-days when I was a kid and playing high school football. I'll never forget that moment. I'm like, this is not good for me. Why are we doing this? I'm throwing up. But that builds resilience. That builds toughness. I'll never forget trying to quit. My dad said, no, you're not quitting. We don't quit. Like, you're going to keep going, right? So you got to build resilience. The time to not build resilience is when someone is injured. Okay. And again, that sounds like so intuitive, but I tell you, I see people all the time with stress injuries because the coach said, you got to keep running, you got to push through that. You've got to understand what the difference is. And it's hard sometimes as a coach, but you got to help your kids understand, listen to your body. One of the easiest ways to think about that is 3 out of 10 on the pain scale. Now, you might have some 12-year-old girl that's super dramatic that says my pain is 10. And the only reason I'm using that example is because I have a 12-year-old girl that's super dramatic. Okay. So you can certainly have those moments where you're having to help coach them and help them understand how their body feels. But listening to their body, especially as we get older, listening to your body, how it's functioning. And then that tells us as coaches, well, maybe your mechanics are off, right? Let's do an evaluation. How's your pitching motion? How's your running motion? How are you landing? How are you passing or dribbling or shooting or whatnot? So it's for us as coaches now to start thinking about what's my mechanics. But listen to your body, know when to push the kids, know when to listen. There's a fine line. We've got to build resilience, but especially coming off of injury, we've got to be able to teach the kids to listen to their body. All right, so more on the role models. Again, if we're thinking about top 10 things pros do, 100%, no one outworks me is got to be on that list. These are three athletes in three different sports that are recognized for being some of the hardest workers. I've already talked about Jerry Rice once. I'm a 49ers fan and I love Jerry Rice. Sorry, I brought him up again, but he was one of the hardest workers. And again, one of the greatest receivers ever to play the game. I talked to a teammate of Mookie Betts, who's the middle guy. Congratulations to him on back-to-back World Series. I talked to his teammate and he said, you want to know what makes Mookie Betts one of the best players out there in the league? He's the first one to practice. He's the last one to leave. He puts in more work than anyone else out there. Again, it's kind of like the Olympian I saw. No one sees what you're doing behind the scenes. Obviously, one of the greatest, if not the greatest hockey player of all time, is known by his peers to be one of the hardest workers as well. So consistency is the key. This is something we've got to preach to our athletes, to our coaches. You can't cram to be a great athlete, right? Don't get me wrong. I went through med school. I crammed a lot. I know cramming. I know thinking of things and doing a lot of work in 1 week to get to that final finish line. Sports and athletics and being the best of the best is not about cramming, and you all know that. So we're preaching to our athletes, consistency is key. Don't think that, oh, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be the best athlete because I'm going to show up early and leave late for 2 weeks, and then you get tired and you're done. So this is a youth application here. Again, kind of going back to what I talked about before is build strength from role models and examples, right? Use these examples. You find motivational stories from athletes that fought back, that were the best in their game, and figure out why, and help your kids and your coaches understand that and gain motivation from it. Along those lines, setting performance goals and tracking. This is not done enough, in my opinion, in youth sports. As a coach, as a director, I think we have a lot of influence in this area that can help kids improve, as opposed to just showing up to practice. Like, what's your goal? What are you trying to get out of this season? Break it down. And what I'd recommend is 2 goals every season, 1 team goal and 1 individual goal. And I think it's well within your realm as a coach, as a director, to talk to your coaches about this. Is have your players tell you, right? This is my goal this year. I want to be 80% from the line. I want to play, more than 60% of every game as far as minutes go this season, right? I want to get into the starting 5. Whatever it is, have them tell you that goal and then track it. Find ways to get there. And my favorite thing about this, honestly, is you're developing life skills that will greatly benefit them going forward, which I think is the most important part of youth sports. Okay, some of you may know this number, but 0.303. Okay, so three people out of 1,000 will go pro in their respective sport. Okay, what do parents think? New York Times article just came out and said 10% of parents think their kid is going pro. All right, there's a big disconnect there. So we know that most of these kids are not going pro. Maybe they'll get a D1 scholarship, maybe they'll get a college scholarship, which would be amazing, which would be great. But what's going to help them the most is their life skill development. So again, what we're doing is we're separating ourselves as a club, as a team, to give our athletes and our families and our parents these types of skills and these types of wins. Now, when I'm recruiting someone and they're looking at 4 different soccer clubs in the area to go to, I can show them all these things that we're doing for our athletes. And as a parent of athletes, you're going to win them over. Stay passionate and balanced. Work hard, play hard. It's one of our favorite mottos as a family. You got to teach hard work, which we talked about, but you got to find balance. My example here is one of my best friends in high school, was a very, very good tennis player, #1 tennis player as a freshman in high school. His parents had him playing every night. He played tournaments every weekend. By the time he was a junior, he was rebelling. I don't want to do this. What am I doing? I hate this. I hate sport. If you've read Open by Andre Agassi, very similar. He wanted to just completely give up tennis multiple times, right? So find ways to bring balance, do team building activities, at least one fun activity for the kids every season outside of normal practice. You've got to bring balance into what they're doing. My buddy junior year rebelled. His parents were not happy, but he started playing basketball, which they never wanted him to do because they thought he was going to get hurt. He started going out with us on the weekends and turned it around by senior year. He loved it again, went and played D1 tennis, which was great. But find balance in what you're doing so they can stay passionate and love the game. You gotta love what you're doing. Otherwise, these kids will get burned out and eventually they will give it up. And finally, surround yourself with the right team. I think we've made mention of this before, but pros have the right team around them. They have strength and conditioning. They have nutritionists, psychologists, athletic trainers, doctors, skill development coaches. They have role models they look up to. Influence for your athletes has to be more than just the coaches. You've got to find ways to influence your athletes more than just the person, drawing up the X's and O's for them. So build that right team. Now, one of the problems that exists in youth sports is, hey, I'm an owner of a basketball club that has 25 teams, and we're doing very well, and we've got tournament teams, and it's a great local. This is an example. I'm not really. This is a great local club. I can't afford to hire a full-time strength and conditioning staff. I can't afford to hire a team doc like the Division I school next door to me can. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find a way to surround myself with the right resources and the right people. And that's really what we do. This will segue into kind of what we do at SportMed Connect is we are the team behind the team. So we're going to bring these resources like the Elliot Cox I talked to you about, who works with the Tampa Bay Rays, like the Amy Goodsons, who work with professional level players and D1 players on nutrition, the strength and conditioning coaches like Mel Sanders, who work with the Derrick Henrys of the world and the Wembanyamas. So we have these resources that we will now bring to your club without you having to hire out all these individual people. So what I would say for your application and your club is evaluate what your current team looks like and what do you need, right? Some of you may feel like our club, we're not to the point where we need a nutritionist. We're not there, but man, it'd be great to know and learn something from a sports strength and conditioning coach that knows soccer, that knows hockey really well. So find out what's missing. And again, that's going to change depending upon what type of team you are. If you're a rec level team, if you're a tournament level team, that you're traveling all over the country, that might change. But evaluate your team and figure out what you need and then how to go out and get it. So let me spend that's the bulk of it. Let me spend let's see what time we got, 49. So let me spend like 3-4 minutes on SportMed Connect. I told Gabe and Zach that I would do this as far as our partnership and kind of what we do. He explained TeamGenius a little bit, but really we're out to revolutionize the way youth athletes access and receive care. So and that's really with all their health and wellness. You saw these different things we're talking about. We do monthly webinars where we invite our members and their parents and their athletes to learn from the Amy Goodsons, the Elliot Cox, the Mel Sanders of the world. So these are really, really important for us to give access to these athletes. The way that looks, number one, probably our most popular offering is really a 24/7 virtual access to sports medicine experts. So the great example I'll use there, and we've done this so many times, is a kid goes down with an ankle sprain. They walk on it. It's already swollen. They felt a pop. They look around. They've got 20 players on the court and their associated parents and coaches. No one has any medical experience. And so now we're like, okay, well, let's take them to the urgent care or to the ER. It's 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. We might as well just go to the ER. Now you got ER bills. We've had ambulance services come to games because parents don't know what to do. We're taking all the second guessing, the guesswork out of it, really. I mean, no professional athlete or coach would ever take their player to an urgent care. They would call the team doc. It happens all the time when I'm taking care of these teams. They're calling me, hey, this is what happened. What do I do? We're going to virtually triage and treat 80% of the calls we get from parents and athletes. We can do right over the phone. If they need an x-ray, if they need an MRI, if they need a physical therapist, if they need an in-person evaluation, we'll get them to an expert in that area in their community where they can then see someone who knows athletes, right? It's hard for me to watch athletes go to an urgent care, see a PA, and they say, oh, it's a hamstring strain, just sit out for 10 weeks and you can get back. Well, that's the whole season for most of these clubs, right? And then what did they tell them to do to get back? Nothing, right? So our example is call us, we'll evaluate it. This doesn't look like a tear based on these criteria. Here's what you need to do to get back correctly, and here's how you treat it, and here's how we're going to work you back in on a return to play protocol. And now all of a sudden they're back in 10 days. That's a real life example that happened in one of our basketball clubs. So urgent, immediate access to specialty care. Very hard to find. SportMed Connect provides that. Additional offerings, again, we've talked about some of these: mental performance, sports nutrition and fueling, strength and conditioning. We'll pair with the best of the best in the field. We've talked about this already, but suspected injury occurs or even a chronic problem. A lot of these kids are like, they didn't fall, didn't twist anything, but their knees just hurting them. You see them limping in practice. What do I do? Do I go on? Who do I call? Do I call my pediatrician? Do I go to an urgent care? Is it 3 weeks to get into an orthopedic doc? Whatever it is, right? There's still uncertainty there. We don't know what to do. You call a dedicated phone number. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to register. You just call the number. You're part of that organization when your club, when your team is partnered with SportMed Connect, and we take it from there. This is really a benefit to everyone. Athlete loves how quickly they can get back. Coaches love, they don't have to worry about like, oh, should I keep playing this person or not? Is this a bad head injury, or this is a full concussion or a half concussion? I'm not a medical person, so I don't know. We take all that away from you. Just call the number, let the professionals take care of it. Parents, gives them a ton of confidence, knowing that they can save money. They're not getting transported by an ambulance to the ER on a Sunday afternoon for a knee sprain, right? And again, I wouldn't keep saying these if they didn't happen. And then as a director, right, you're taking a lot of liability away from you. It's a huge value add when you're recruiting. Real quick at the end is a customer highlight. I've used some examples already of ambulance service and 10 weeks versus 10 days. But this is an example of a club that we work with. You know, they have 250 athletes. They practice recreational tournament level basketball all year round, and they implement SportMed Connect services into what they do. So with that, let's spend just maybe 10 seconds. Fine, I'll give you 30 seconds. If you have not done so in the chat, or if you're willing to share something that you feel like, hey, this is a takeaway I want to take from this, throw that in the chat. Clint is keeping track of everyone who's put something in the chat so that we can give this game day kit away. So again, if you felt like here's a principle, here's a concept that I want to apply to my club, my team, my coaches, drop it in the chat so we can get you eligible for this for the giveaway. And then as you guys are doing that and thinking about it, I think Gabe, I'll kind of pass the buck to you for right now. We can go through a Q&A as people are typing those in.
Yeah, great. Lots of really valuable stuff, Sean. And I think there's a lot of examples of role models that you've pointed out that are really good for the kids to look up to. And I think there's equally the same amount, if not more, that maybe the kids should not strive to be like on the nutrition side. I think just growing up playing hockey and football, like we would all laugh about like Marshawn Lynch eating Skittles on the sidelines. And I mean, by all means, clearly something worked for him, but how much potential was he leaving on the table by doing that versus eating something that might have been a better option? And you just see there's so much data out there now that's available. And like I said earlier, not every player is going to take this stuff and implement it, but I think it's the coach's job to lead the way and live a life that's an example for those athletes. And there's no better way than actually showing them, hey, here's what I'm eating, here's what I did as an athlete. And that's sort of the coach's responsibility, is be that role model as much as you can.
Yeah, and I'd say you guys are the first. You're the first line defense for a lot of things. I've had coaches come to me that have detected severe mental disease, mental illness, right? And suicide ideation, or thoughts of suicide, or domestic abuse at home. Oftentimes the coaches, if they have the trust of their athletes, will get a lot of this information firsthand. So as Gabe was saying, you're the first line of defense for a lot of things. So let's help them and be the role models for them. So there was a question that came in, looks like for 14 to 16-year-olds doing DEXA scans. A DEXA scan does have radiation. We don't know if there's a clear problem with that per se, but here's what I'd say. I wouldn't get DEXA scans routinely for that age group. If there was a specific reason that they were being done, I would be okay with that. Usually we would look at that as someone who's got some sort of congenital bone abnormality. Then we'd be looking at DEXA scans, or if they've had a childhood history of cancer or something like that. Um, for some of the sports performance uses of DEXA scans, I would personally probably wait till they're more mature, definitely growth plate closed age.
That's great. A couple other questions we had before we get to that giveaway. Any major trends in sports injuries nowadays? I know there's a large trend of like specialization, kids just playing one sport, and you sort of alluded to that, and Kobe Bryant doing tap dancing and those examples. But is there anything that you see that's a big trend? Any reason that that might be trending, and how the players can avoid that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, multiple national organizations have come out against sports specialization at a young age. And what I would tell you for that is really below 14. Once you're in high school, if you want to focus in on one sport, yeah, that's great. And even at that point, I tell everyone, even like we see a lot of dancers and gymnasts and they're year round kind of thing. You got to give your body time off of your sport. So I say a minimum of 6 weeks off of your sport every week. It doesn't have to be all at the same time. It can be cumulative over the course of the year, but you've got to have 6 weeks where you don't do your sport at all. Where you're doing cross training, you're doing swimming, you're going to play rec volleyball or whatever. And I know some parents get nervous, like, oh, my kid's going to get hurt or whatever, but that's really, really good for kid development. And especially under 14, I really am against sports specialization, and not just me, but but all national sports medicine organizations are as well. So I know that's hard for some coaches to hear, like, well, if they take a season off, then they're not going to be as good. And that's not the case. You look at the World Series, Little League World Series, and 80% of those athletes play a second sport. So remember, teach athleticism, but sports specialization younger than 14 is dangerous for repetitive use injuries. We get Tommy John surgeries, which is a tear of the UCL ligament in the elbow for baseball players mostly. We see them earlier and earlier. Right? There are people that are getting that done at the end of middle school, going into high school, which is absolutely crazy. So they're getting 2 or 3 Tommy John surgeries in their career. So we've got to be careful on. So that would say one trend is overuse injuries, and I think applying some of these techniques of listening to your body, implementing recovery days off, implementing kind of balanced approach to what you're doing, all those things help. So overuse injuries are still a key. Nutrition, recovery, hydration, sleep, that all plays a role into overuse injuries as well. So that's, especially with open growth plates and as kids are growing, we see a lot of that. Um, we're getting better in the contact sport and collision sport world on concussion, because we're getting better at form and teaching good principles and techniques more so than equipment, right? I mean, you'll see now the Guardian caps in football, and some of these people trying to, and there's lots of companies out there trying to figure out, how am I going to prevent concussions? What other device can I make that's going to prevent them? And to be honest, the best thing so far of all the things we've seen has been teaching correct technique, not leading with your head, those kind of things. I mean, rugby players have less concussions than football players. That's crazy, right? Rugby players don't wear a helmet. Well, the helmet actually acts as uh, uh, something to prevent skull fractures and brain bleeds, but it actually increases the incidence of concussion because they think they've got something protecting them. So teaching correct techniques is really important on a collision sport thing. And then I'd say overuse would be the other one for trends.
Makes a lot of sense. I know we will just have a few more minutes left here. Yeah, Sean, any fads nowadays that you would say either coaches should tell their players to stay away from, or something they can go to practice tonight and say, let's all as a team try to do this one thing? It could be like gratitude journaling, or I know like sauna, and there was the knees over toes guy. Like, what is
Yeah.
one of those fads that you see that you're like, don't do this or absolutely do this?
Yeah, I'd stay away from fad diets. That would be one thing that I see people trying to do, like, oh, I'm going keto, I'm going to get huge or something like that. So you got to be careful with that. We focus much more on balanced diet, especially at the youth age. So just be cautious of fad diets. And on that same line, supplements. I mean, I've seen kids uh, severely cramped, severely dehydration, rhabdo, which basically is breakdown of the muscle protein because they're on so many supplements and they're not, doing the other stuff. So just be cautious with kids on that. And then boy, I don't know. On the fad side of things, on the positive, I think really what I would say is positive is any of the recovery modalities. Like if you want a sauna, if you want a cold plunge, if you want a red light, if you want a recovery pants, those kind of things, I would implement those. And again, I don't know. Again, the science behind it is slowly coming, I would say, but it's not fully there from a physician standpoint. So find a recovery modality and implement that.
Great, great advice. Clint, you want to take it away with the giveaway?
Absolutely. That was awesome, though. Thanks, Sean and Gabe. So everyone who joined live today was entered into our $500 Ultimate Game Day Kit giveaway. So this includes a Yeti Hopper flip cooler, 2 Yeti Ramblers, and a $150 Dick's Sporting Goods gift card. I'm going to share my screen here. Hold on one second. All right, can you see my screen?
We got it.
Okay, so all the names that I've seen throughout the chat are loaded up here into this spin wheel. We're gonna do one spin, and whoever it lands on takes home the kit. So, all right, here we go. Let's spin it. Good luck, everyone. Oh, dang, close. That's awesome.
Maria.
Congrats, Maria. Fantastic. We've got our winner. We'll reach out to you after the webinar to get your info. Make sure to get you your prize. I'll hand it back over to Gabe.
Yeah, thanks, Clint. Exciting stuff. Congrats, Maria. Like Clint said, we'll be in touch. Just a big thank you to everybody for your engagement. Sean, thanks for all the information there. Clint, thanks for being on. Zach, thanks a ton for the help logistically too on the webinar. We appreciate you. Couldn't be doing this without you. And just, yeah, be on the lookout for the recording and slide deck later today. I think we should have that out. And if you do have any follow-up questions too on any of this information, reach out to TeamGenius or SportMed Connect. You can respond to the follow-up email and I'll get that information or the question to Sean or Clint. And more than anything, we just hope that you all got something valuable out of today that you can take to your athletes to make their next season even better. If you do have any success stories that come out of this webinar, we'd love to hear them. So please do share with us. Those are the stories that keep us all going in the youth sports industry. So remember that we're here if you need anything from us. And thanks again to everybody for joining. Hopefully you have a great rest of your fall season. And for anybody in the north, stay warm this weekend. I think there's a cold one coming. So you guys take care.